Good morning. How we doing? We're going to bring Chris Stuart on right now here also. Guys, I'm pumped up to have the great Chris Stuart, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, with us today. As we get him online here, we're going to play a quick video to kick off for us that Gina has found. Do we have Chris's video on? I see a smiling face of him.
There he is.
Oh, there he is. There he is. My God, looks like he's right by the Golden Gate Bridge there. And how you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, buddy. I was getting my groove on this morning. I love the music.
All right. Gotta have the music. Gotta have the music.
Absolutely.
We're gonna play a quick video, and then I'm gonna give a couple quotes real quick. I've been reading here Seth Madison. Many of you guys know, because I brought Seth in as a good friend of mine 3 years ago to speak to us. And I don't know if Chris has met him before or not, but Seth and Ryan Estes and I all had a meeting last week, and then here in a couple more weeks, we're going to add Inky Johnson and 2 other thought leaders to another collaboration. So hopefully I'm going to come out of some really, really good stuff to share with you guys to help us be more productive as we move forward. But I love some of the stuff he's talking about that I'll share. So Gina, can we play a quick little video, and then we're going to dive into what Chris Stuart knows.
It is there if you're prepared to take advantage of it. There are thousands of occupations awaiting the workers who are qualified to fill them.
Survival is going to go not to the strongest or the most intelligent, but the most adaptable.
There are tests which will help you choose work which fits your level of capacity best.
Almost all jobs are becoming technology jobs.
We have to be more intentional about how training and education matches to actual tasks and jobs.
Many people today are working at things which were their hobbies a few years ago.
For the first time, literally, substantial and rapidly growing numbers of people will have choice. We have to be aware of 2 things that are happening right now in the world of work. The first, we're realizing we're in for a much different kind of future, and we're racing to figure out how we can help individuals and businesses get ready. The second, we're starting to become highly aware that the more you push one narrow metric of success, money, growth, profit, at the expense of other life factors, the further we get from actually achieving true sustainable success. So we know the future of work will be different, and we can't keep doing things the same old way. A new way of work needs to emerge. 89% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 list in 1955 are no longer on the list today. These are the businesses that had the most resources, the most talent, the greatest technology, the biggest network, and we've proven they rise and fall fast.
This really is the end of an era. Blockbuster will close all of its remaining stores, about 300 of them, by early January.
Well, what's wrong with Kodak? How could it have gone wrong?
It's so hard to keep up with change, and change is speeding up. So what's the next few decades going to look like? Whether you're running a business or just running your life, that question is essential. In the last few decades, there was a shift of mind that started to define business success as one thing: money. This isn't my opinion. We can see evidence of this mindset. And the question is, has this singular focus worked out for people? Has it worked out for businesses? There's good reason to believe it hasn't. It's taken us time to understand our mistake and let it sink in. The old pursuit of work is not what's fully needed for the future. So then what is the answer? What are the real drivers of tomorrow's success, not just in business, but in life? Here's the thing. The new version of work, yes, it will be about technology, but it will also be about being human. Are you able to offer your highest potential? Can you keep learning, keep getting better, stay motivated, stay focused? The best advances in tech and the best capabilities of people coming together, that is the new version of work. Self-awareness, creativity, empathy, trust. These factors will help define your future success. We place a lot of faith in the ability for technology to make things better. My faith is also in people.
guys, Gina pulled it up and said, Vince, I think this is a home run for what we're talking about. There's zero question. We're going through a time of change like we've never seen before. And in fact, what I was reading that Seth sent to me is talking about leading high performance in virtual teams. And it talks about that studies in the past have shown that productivity goes down 50% when people work from home versus their office. I want to read a couple of things to you because I do believe technology, social media, you guys have heard that, is going to change how we do business moving forward. We're going to dive into with Chris, some things that he's learned from this to help us so we're not 50% as productive when we're working at home. And I think there's been a learning curve that we can take out of this to be more productive, but I still don't think it replaces us being in the marketplace. Seth said in his article, and I'm going to share all this stuff with you when Seth and Ryan and I get done our collaboration here, is 2020 will mark a defining moment of transformation, a moment when everything about how we've historically collaborated and led teams, organized and deployed resources is being forced. And that's really the truth. We've been forced into a new reality. It's being forced to be redesigned in an instant. When physically working together is no longer an option, having the ability to influence, communicate, and create shared visions across digital landscapes has become an indispensable skill. So one of the things that we're going to talk about with Chris is, what has he learned and how's things changed. The other thing that Seth was talking about is relationships versus belonging. I'm going to read one more thing and then we're going to dive into this. Around the world, belonging is one of the most highly regarded human values. In fact, in America, belonging sits at the very top of our value set. So we've got to understand human connection, building relationships, belonging to something, and being together is important. With that being said, we're in a situation today where we've been forced, the world's been changed to the point we've never, ever seen this before in our lifetimes, to communicate in a more different, meaningful way. Ryan Estes gave a quote that stuck in my head. He said, as he's talking to leaders around the country, it's been crystal clear to him, and we've changed our thought processes. We're doing weekly emails and trying to communicate to you guys in a more meaningful, different way. He says it's been crystal clear to him that we must communicate more frequently and with more clarity than we ever have at any point in time in history. And that's what we need you doing with your clients, and that's what the burden that falls on our shoulders is to do with you guys. So guys, we're going to dive into some stuff here with Chris, and when we're done with that, I'll run through some of our numbers, talk about as we're opening up open houses on the soft opening, how to handle that type of stuff. But Chris, brother, glad to have you. It's early in the morning there. It's 7 in the morning for you in California, and you've been working out of home for what, 7 weeks now?
Yeah, ever since we got back from Nashville. Haven't left. Every day right here in the home.
Well, it looks like you're getting haircuts because my hair, this is my hair, two plus months of hair just growing. Luckily, when I'm old, it grows slow. Otherwise, Ty, my stepson's hair's about down to his shoulders now, and he was about bald when we started this thing. So you're looking good, brother. You're looking good. I'm going to run through a couple of questions here, Chris, and anything you want to intervene, please do. Agents, if you've got chats or questions or thoughts, we've got some of the managers monitoring these things, and Gina will get those to me to get to Chris as we continue to move through this process. So, Chris, I'm going to shoot through some questions here and just give me your thoughts on this, if you could, please. How do you believe going through this coronavirus issue has affected the real estate market and the economy, and where do you see both of those as we come out of this?
It's interesting, and I feel like I had this debate with friends and family and even neighbors this past weekend. We were sitting out socially distancing and doing all the right things, of course, but the neighbors were just convinced that this thing's going to be a spiraling dumpster fire in terms of real estate. And the issue is, and I feel this way about a lot of things in our society, is everyone wants to shape a conversation as either black or white. It's either good or it's bad. It's either a dumpster fire or it's the best thing since sliced bread. And the reality is, so many things in our life are really shades of gray. Most issues and most things turn out in some form of interpretation between the ends of the opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think while the headlines are dominated by unemployment and this and that and the recovery and stimulus and all these sorts of things, and you're right, for some industries and some people, it's going to be, you know, far worse before it gets better. But the reality is, I think everything fundamental about the housing industry was so solid going into this pandemic that we're going to come out looking a lot better than a lot of people probably think, and certainly a lot different than a lot of other industries. And you don't need to look any further than what's happening in some of our big metro market areas, like the Mid-Atlantic. I spoke about the Bright MLS, which covers 10% of the real estate market in the United States. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. You know, their current inventory levels are 107% of where we were last year. And in terms of new pendings, we're at between 70 and 80% of where we were last year. And the most important thing is values are holding, okay? Values are holding. That's critical because it's really an indication of supply and demand. And what was different about the 07 and 08 recession compared to where we are now is the demand between, the balance between supply and demand is much more favorable now than it was then. We don't have this glut of listings in the marketplace, nor do we have a dynamic where 15% of our buying pool has been lopped off. Now, is unemployment high? Absolutely. But you've got to look at, first of all, if unemployment is between 15 and 25%, which, by the way, would be like a meteoric number, 25%. It's only going to be that bad in some markets, not all markets. But that still means that 75% of the buying pool is gainfully employed. Now, are there furloughs? Is there income adjustments? Yes, but it's probably temporary. And then you've got to look at that percentage of the unemployment pool. How many of those people are hourly workers and probably not even prospective real estate buyers to begin with? And so when we're looking at the data, a couple of things that I think are very important to understand, okay? And I've talked about this before too. If you went back to the year 1999, more than 20 years ago, as a country, we sold 5.2 million homes, okay? The only time we've sold more than 5.2 million homes was pre-recession, which we know was completely fueled by the subprime mortgage liquidity marketplace, okay? And then in 2017, we sold 5.5 million homes. The last 2 years, we've sold 5.3 million homes. So our marketplace as real estate sales professionals has been relatively consistent for all of these years. We're not dealing in a typical commodity or consumable marketplace where people are changing their trends every year or month, right? Buying more tennis shoes, traveling more, buying more airline tickets, these, you know, buying more cars, buying less cars. This has been a relatively stable industry for a long time, except for a few peaks and valleys because of some temporary recessions. We were on pace this year to sell 5.8 million. We're probably on an adjusted basis now going to sell 4.8 million. So we're going to lose 1 million sales because of this, to be clear. However, here's my thing. Here's my thing, Vince. How many of your competitors have furloughed themselves? How many real estate agents in your market have furloughed themselves? They're scared, they're on the sidelines, their heads in the sand, they don't understand what's going on, and therefore they're not conveying any confidence or vision to their clients. That their market share is what you need to go get so that you, every single person listening and watching, can have at least the same year in 2020 that you had in 2019. So we need to go get market share from other people who have furloughed themselves and keep our numbers consistent with where we ended up 2019, even though the market is going to experience some downturn. And then I think in 2021, we pop back to where we were last year at about 5.3 million sales. That's my initial take on it, Vince.
And Chris, I'm looking at your background, you know, that has the forever brand, forever agent concept on it. And we have talked about that exact thing, that, you know, if you go back to what Ryan said, we've been telling everybody, there's never been a time more important for you to reach out to your database with an I care attitude, be there, have longer conversations than normal. But the people that are building and nurturing those relationships and showing value to people, you know, are the forever agents. There's always a flock to quality organizations, quality business people, in this case, salespeople, in these times. And so what I am finding, by the way, last month in April, we ran about 85–90% of the sales that we did last year, which was one of our best months. Now listings were at about 75%, but I'm having many conversations where many sellers are on the sideline, and we believe over the next 45 days are going to still list their property. So we believe there might be a little bit of a bounce back the second half of the year, and those numbers might be even a little better than expected. We're hoping to have a stronger second half of the year than we would typically have to make up for some of the loss we've had here for these last couple of months. So it's interesting. I see, Chris, guys, I've tried to get the best speakers in the country for you guys. I came in for the first month. I was the best speaker I could find and at the best price. And now we're bringing Chris in. And I talked to Gino last night, and he's the third best we could find. So after that, I don't know who we're going to get, but I'm playing with you. Obviously, Chris and Gino are 1 and 2, but Chris, we love having you here. And in a couple of weeks, we are going to have Gino guys speak to us. So we're going to try to keep you informed and get different perspectives as we go around things. Chris, everyone's been working from home for the most part, right? The vast majority of people. And my question is, how do you believe the consumers, the public's view is going to be of homeownership as we come out of this? Is it going to be different? And what I mean is, as people are spending more time in their homes, to me, I tend to believe, I have no scientific data to back this up, but I tend to believe they're going to view a home differently than they have in the past because they've been forced to be in the house. It's became more important to them to have a space that they're comfortable in, that they enjoy, and that they like. So I tend to think there's a possibility we could come out of this, the public could view homeownership different than it has before in a positive light, in a more positive light, because they're finding it to be more important because as they're spending more time there, they're paying more attention to it. Do you have a thought on that?
Oh, big time. Absolutely. I think people are going to be much more mindful of all of the space in their homes. I think they're probably more mindful potentially of their neighborhoods and their the communities and being particular about the flexibility in a home. And I think the other thing too, Vince, is I think we're about to open up a whole new segment of a buying pool that maybe before now, you saw the flight to the urban, densely populated city centers over the last 5 to 10 years. You saw that. And I can guarantee, and we're seeing in our numbers, that is going to be something that changes. I'm not saying that people give up their condos and apartments in the city centers. I'm not saying that. I am saying that a lot of those people sitting in those densely populated areas are probably going, hey, now maybe it's time to think about that lakefront property or the ski lodge or the cabin somewhere or some other setup. And we're seeing it. We had one of our very top agents, Nelson Gonzalez in Miami. He had 7 showings just Friday for properties over $5 million. And what happened was there was a flight out of New York City, Connecticut, and New Jersey down to South Florida. They had tons of high-end properties that had been on the market for, in many cases, months, if not years. We turned a lot of those into short-term rentals, and now those people, having been there for a couple of months, are buying property like crazy. So we're up in certain segments of the luxury market, beginning at $1 million at the condo level in South Florida. In Northwest Florida, we're up 25% on unit transactions, and the average sales price is up 15%. And these are properties from $1.3 million, $5 million, oceanfront and non-oceanfront in the panhandle of Florida. A lot of people coming out of Nashville and Atlanta. And so, you think about the ranch and land business that you have, all your new home construction, which I know so many of you on the call do such a good job working with your builders. I'm telling you right now, there's a whole new dynamic, undercurrent of demand at play here. And to Vince's point, reaching out to your clients, asking for referrals, building your book of business right now, because so many of your competitors are on the sidelines. They furloughed themselves. But these are the conversations that people want to have. And what they need to know is they need to know what's going on with listings, what's going on with pendings, what's going on with value, what's going on with showings. These things, like I said, if we depend on the news media to educate our buyers and sellers about what's going on in our industry, well, then shame on us, because it's not black or white, it's shades of gray, and we are the storytellers. We own the gray narrative, and it's specific to each buyer and seller's unique circumstances. What are they looking for? What might they be looking for in the future? These are the types of conversations that you lead to business, both short-term and long-term. And I'm telling you right now, most of the industry is checked out. I get fired up, Vince. I'm sorry.
I like it. I agree. I was Will down there in the Florida Keys. I was speaking to his company last week, and they asked this exact question. And they said that they're seeing and they're believing that actually they're going to come out of this stronger, that people are going to be looking for more resort type properties and second homes and spending more times there because of what's going on here, that they're finding that having that place to go to is becoming more comfortable for people. So it's interesting to hear what you're saying. The second thing you've really now said twice is that you're seeing in some places prices going up, and you said earlier that this is not like 2007, 8, 9. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing on our mastermind groups as we're talking to people, the people that have sat on the sidelines, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago thinking, oh, there's gonna be a crash of prices. That's not valid. And part of it is you mentioned, Chris, I think the low inventory, but a second part of this, right, is low interest rates are just so crazy low. The buying power that people have, the ability to get in and buy houses, a lot more house today at 3.125%, 3.25% than they could have a year ago at 4.25%. That helps prices stay up in addition to the low inventory. So there's a lot of dynamics working today that should make us feel good coming out of this about real estate. So I love that. Thank you very much, brother. You've been talking to a lot of people. What would be some of your recommendations of what an agent should be doing? What's important for them to be doing today in these times? Because I think they're still going to continue to be social distancing for some period of time here in the foreseeable future. But what do they need to be doing to make sure they continue to remain productive and be the best prepared as they head out there? I love a quote that Ryan Estes gave to me last week. I've always said, let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And he says, I'm preparing for the worst and working for the best. He says, I am going to work my way out of this. That if I outwork everybody else, the best will come. So yeah. What do they need to be doing to make sure that they're productive and prepared to continue to be successful as we run through this thing?
Well, so I want to touch on something that I said earlier, and I just want to put an underline under this again. So as many of you know, and for those of you that don't know, I was lucky to be a part of Gino's leadership team at Intero Real Estate Services, which is a company that he started and built from scratch. And I joined along the way and helped create that. So I want to be clear here with my perspective on responding to this question, okay? Because I think this is important. In 2007, okay, we lost half of the sales in our primary county, Santa Clara County, which is the engine that drove our company. We lost half the sales. 25,000 sales went down to 12,000 sales. We cut $8 million out of our annual budget, which means we eliminated and or significantly reduced a lot of our infrastructure, tools, resources, support, marketing, you name it, and we doubled our market share. We doubled our market share despite the fact that half of the market went away, and we reduced significantly our operating expense and therefore support. Now, why did we do that? Because we focused exclusively on our mindset, our skill set, and our work ethic, recognizing that if we were going to achieve our goals, we had to go take it from somebody else that wasn't prepared to work and prepare as hard as we were. And so I think that's the most critical thing for all of you, is to have a very intentional, vividly clear picture of what your business looks like for the balance of the year. And what I'm saying is, and I love, Vince, that you're at 85 to 90% of where you are last year, then great. Keep the business plan that you built for yourself in 2020 and just be prepared to work harder than everyone else to go achieve those objectives. If on the other hand, some of your business maybe is already off this year, I would say do no less than, as an absolute minimum, what you did in 2019, because it's there, it's available. And so I think the most important thing for me, Vince, is that people first start with a clear vision and a vividly clear picture of what they're going to achieve. And then they're just relentless with their work ethic. And I think, to me, the most critical element of the work that we should be doing right now is being visible to our clients. Everyone collectively is embracing technology and embracing these video sessions and things like that. Everyone's getting comfortable together, which means your clients are also. Went to the drugstore yesterday to pick up some allergy medication. I was behind two ladies, older ladies. They had to be at least in their 70s. And all they were talking about was Zooming with their kids and grandkids. That's all they were talking about. And then they got to the cashier, and the cashier was saying, oh, the Zoom and the grandkids and this and the birthdays and all that. And I'm thinking, look, the fabric of how we communicate as people is changing and will forever be changed. The good news for us as service professionals in the real estate industry is the other side of our relationships with our clients, everyone's comfortable. And if they don't see your energy, they don't see your humanity, they don't see your compassion as to how you're outreaching to them, you're missing a golden opportunity, and someone else is going to do it. And so I'm just saying that, to me, the personal human touch and outreach and use of some of these tools like FaceTime or Zoom or whatever you're comfortable with, or just a simple video text message to say, hey, I was thinking about you. Hey, I'm on a walk through the neighborhood. I remember I sold you that property in 2018. Man, I hope you're doing good. And let me tell you, if there's anything you need or any of your family members need something, run an errand to the grocery store, just know I'm here. Just a simple video like that. Send it to them in text message. Trust me, everyone is getting comfortable with this together. They have to see and feel what you're all about. And I think that if we let this opportunity go past us, Vince, and every single person in our respective databases doesn't see us and experience our energy firsthand, we've missed a golden opportunity.
Yeah,
and that's you just got to get up and just be hungrier. Just be hungrier. That's what I said to myself in my role 8 weeks ago. I said there's not going to be another CEO of any brand in the world operating in real estate that's going to work harder than me, period. Whatever I got to do to get up and work harder than everyone else, that's what I'm prepared to do.
Just so you know, the number one thing we started preaching 7, 8 weeks ago, right when we got back from convention, was at that time I said the next 30 days you're going to find the balance of the year, and that 30 days has kind of been extended maybe to 60 or 75 days, but it's been reach out to everyone in your database, not just your buyers and sellers, with an I care attitude. What can I do? How can I help you? And build a meaningful relationship there. You talked about in the very beginning of that, mindset. What do you do? What's a tip? Because we know people, the most successful people in the world, we talk about this a lot. People get sick of me preaching on it, but it all starts with mindset. Because if what we have in the world right now, Chris, is studies are showing there's more anxiety and stress, right? And suicides than we've ever had before, because the financial stress, the health stress is creating a different anxiety in the world than we've had before. So what would a tip that you personally use or recommend to people to help get them in that positive mindset, to make sure that they're waking up, to set themselves up to have a productive day every single day?
Yeah, I think two things, Vince, that are very important. I'm so glad you asked this question, because I think as an industry, we miss on this a lot of times. I think a lot of times people think, oh, my mindset, I just need to be more like Vince, or I need to be more like,
nobody says that, Chris. Nobody says that.
Yeah. And no, but I think, in fairness, Vince, you've got a great energy. You're always positive and you're uplifting. And so, whether it's Vince or whomever, you're associated with, that you feel like, oh, that a strong mindset looks like that. Well, it might look like that, but here's the reality. The two things that I think are critical. Number one, when I think about a healthy mindset, what I think about is that I'm constantly evaluating what are the things that I can control, what are the things that I can't control, related to what's occupying my thoughts. So there's things that are making me anxietal. It could be my business, my income, my expenses, my family relations. It's all these things. I got to be mindful and intentional about, hey, some of those things I can't control, and therefore I'm going to be deliberate about writing them down. And sometimes I've worked with people, coached people, where I said, look, I want you to write those things down every day, those things that you're worried about that you can't control. And I literally want you to write them down, take the piece of paper, wad it up, and throw it in the trash can. It's a physical exercise that says I cannot focus on that. So I think that's the first thing, is to be mindful and aware enough to realize what is causing a lot of this stress and anxiety. Here's the point number two, okay? And I think this is very critical, that we don't allow ourselves sometime the opportunity just to stop, pause, and reflect what's going on around us. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was getting a little irritable last week, And I didn't know why, because nothing had changed about my schedule. I'm sleeping great, eating great, working out, drinking tons of water, and I was just irritable. And I just took the time to reflect, like, what the hell's going on with you, man? And you know what I thought it was, Vince? I haven't been hugging my kids. All this social distancing crap. I'm like, because I'm a hugger, very physical. I'm, hugging my kids and my wife and kissing them and giving them shoulder rubs while they're doing their homework and stuff. And I thought, man, I've been missing that. So you know what? I said, hey, 10 hugs a day. And it changed my state. And so to me, Vince, the mindset is focused on what you can control the controllables, and be mindful about what those things are and what they aren't. And the other thing is take time to just reflect. Take time to think about, what's going on in your world, and make sure that, you're constantly keeping yourself tuned up. And if there's any bad mojo, that you're, fixing that.
That's perfect. I love that. You gave me a thought that I had to give a note to Gina about. As I've been talking to other companies around the country, Steve Face's company, a couple people came up and said, with all of this Zoom and video and technology and the way we're communicating is so different than it's been in the past, the question was raised is, there's already been downward pressures on commissions, and the consumers saying, why are we paying so much? What's the value of a real estate agent? The question, Chris, that was raised was, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, was going through this, will it continue to devalue us as real estate agents? My answer was no, but I would love to hear your answer and your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing. So hopefully we can get all of you to embrace what I'm about to share. But many of you know we've had a long-standing relationship with the Wall Street Journal family of companies, okay, all their platforms, which they're a huge publisher, okay. What we did, because of what's going on, was we pivoted and reduced and reallocated a lot of our marketing spend at the brand level. And what I wanted to do with the Wall Street Journal was reach out and do a series of consumer-centric studies that we could then turn around and respond to with specific branded content that we could push out to our network and our databases, as well as the platform. And they do this very well because they have a highly engaged readership, okay? And here's some of the crazy stuff that's coming back from the first series of surveys that we did. Consumers believe that because the technology is what it is and we've got to do virtual showings and all of this sort of thing, they actually think that we're going to charge more now moving forward. They think that because a lot of the part-time agents and less than professional, seasoned, experienced agents, they think that they're preparing for paying more commission rate because they're going to be dealing with a more seasoned, experienced sales professional, that a lot of the part-time folks in the business are probably going away. They believe that values are going to erode, some of them, and that the buyer pool has been deteriorated in some respect. So why do I share that with you? Because two things. Number one, the buyers and sellers of real estate are not in the business with the same frequency that we are. In other words, a lot of our psychology about the business and our role and our value and how we present our fees is so different than the way your buyers and sellers on the other side of a conversation are looking at it, because they don't deal with it. We deal with it all the time. They don't. And so a lot of the misperceptions that we create as an industry are completely self-created. They're completely self-created, that we don't have value and that there's compression in the commission rates. Trust me, most of your buyers and sellers don't even care. They don't even know what we're talking about half the time with all this goofy technology and all this crap, okay? And a lot of these, and I'm talking about savvy consumers, we pulled 5,000 of them with an average net worth of $3.5 million, household income of nearly 500,000. Most of them own more than 2 properties. These are savvy people, and that's what they're saying. And so I believe right now that the level of the knowledge and wisdom that you can prepare your buyers and sellers for about what's going on in the market, what's trending, What are the popular neighborhoods? What are the popular amenities? Do you have a skill set in new construction, infill, land, all of the full range of the craft, so to speak? If you bring that amount of value to the table, trust me, people are willing to pay for value. There's always been a flight to quality in a crisis like this, and there will be moving forward. And here's the thing, if as I suspect, real estate comes out of this pandemic, unlike most other industries, our stocks, commodities, you see what's happening with oil. If real estate comes out of this with a minor blip in our value, let's say that nationally we lose 5% of our real estate value, median sales price goes down 5%. I think in some markets it's going to go up, potentially nationally it goes up. But if we preserve that amount of value in the nation's trillion-dollar real estate economy, trust me, people are going to want to buy more real estate. They're going to want to own more real estate. They're going to want to understand their real estate investments more particularly, because we'll be able to have looked back and say, look what happened to oil, look what happened to commodities, look what happened to the stock market. And we're not saying you got to get out of those as investments. We're just saying you got to understand real estate. And you all are the gateway to that understanding, right? So it's about translating data and information to knowledge and wisdom, recognizing that you sit as a gatekeeper to some very valuable information. Now, if you adopt that mentality, I guarantee you won't have any issues with your commissions. If you don't, and we continue to subscribe and romanticize all this technology and all this crap, then you're going to be in jeopardy. So I think it's going to be the haves and the have-nots in response to the question, Vince.
Right. And the whole industry's been heading that way, but this may be even fast tracks that to a point where, again, as we talked about earlier, this is a true flock to quality. And if as you say, wisdom and knowledge, if you take that and you show value, and we've talked about over the last 2 years, Chris, concierge services, how do we make this an easy, simple, stress-free transaction for our clients? People will see value in that. And so I love hearing those survey numbers, because I tend to believe that in tough times, people don't focus so much on commission. They tend to focus on, what are you going to do? What is the value? How are you going to help me? How are you going to remove the stress? And how am I going to get this done? And hopefully make this an enjoyable experience for me. So love your perspective on that. Thank you very much. Chris, you've had, and I think you have one even going on this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. You've had numerous panels get together doing Zoom calls with brokers, agents, top producers around the country. Could you tell me what's one or two of the best pieces of advice that you've heard from people on those panels that you could share with us? There may be some things that we could implement into our businesses.
Yeah, I think, the first thing, which I did touch on earlier, is, number one, I'm shocked with how many of the top performers in our network have said, man, I haven't talked live with my past clients, some of them in years. And we've so delegated our interaction with our past clients and sphere to technology. You're right. We've just set them on a drip. We just, set it and forget it. And we don't even talk to our past clients. And so I think that's one huge takeaway that most of these agents and teams are sharing is we are committed to being in front of our clients with physical phone calls and much more visible that way. I would say that is probably the most critical thing. And I think the other thing is people starting to recognize that, I can realize and get to a real estate discussion through the door, through the pathway of service. So in other words, people shifting their direction of not just wanting to call or advertise or promote, hey, I'm looking to buy and sell real estate, but I'm calling to check on you. Calling to check on your family. I'm calling to check on anything that I can do. And I think it's really opened a lot of people's eyes that they can say, look, I can just, as a real estate sales professional, I can just be geared towards in the service of others, recognizing that the right real estate opportunities will come out of that mindset. So just seeing people change their messaging, again, changing the frequency and the content of what they're communicating to their spheres and past clients. And then as they're doing that, recognizing that, man, I just don't need to pay for all this advertising. I just don't need to pay for all this stuff. I've got a lot of what I need right here in the form of my past clients and sphere. Let me just focus on that and become more organized. So I'd say those are some of the key takeaways from those panels.
Chris, I know that, you've been working on a number of tools. You've had your team working on a number of tools there on the network level. Can you give us an update on the Sage CRM system or any of the tools? Is there any updates you can give us, or is there any tools that we really need to be focused on engaging in right now?
Well, you know, we continue to make improvements to Sage. We know that, and we knew going into it that the first release of that was going to be, you know, deliberately very lightweight and miss a lot of the key functionality. But we prioritize getting something out sooner rather than something more sophisticated later. And, you know, we can debate that. I mean, you know, a lot of people would say, well, just don't do anything until it's ready. And, you know, there's two sides of the equation. But the answer to the question is we continue to make improvements to that along the way. We haven't, so far, we haven't made any adjustments in any of our technology spend. All of our projects remain on track and fully committed in terms of this budget that we established for 2020. And so there's been a lot of incremental pieces that we put in place. We're working on the drip marketing, some of the automations that we knew that we needed to work on since we released it in November, and some great things that are on the horizon there. I would say the AdWorks program, if you're not familiar with it and the effects that it's driving, that is a critical business building tool, and one that is primarily geared towards your sphere and your contacts. And I shared this at convention, but for our new and up and coming users that used it last year, they improved their listings taken by 144%, and over those new and upcoming agents that didn't use it effectively. And for our top producing agents, those with over 50 closings or more, they improved their listings taken by 10. So, you know, a 10, 15, 20% improvement on listings taken for our top producers last year that used AdWorks effectively compared to those that didn't. So, you know, those are, I think the other one is Chalk Digital. We don't talk enough about it, but Chalk Digital is already integrated right inside of Marketing Resource. It provides some incredibly powerful business building tools that you can build around geographic footprint. So open houses, just listed, just sold, your geographical farm, like the ability, here's my thing. I want to make sure that we're always complementing with what you're doing physically and with direct mail, door knocking, open houses, etc., geographical farming with your direct mail pieces, plus what you're doing with phone calls with a periphery of digital pieces that reinforce your brand and reinforce some of your calls to action. So between AdWorks and Chalk Digital, we've got some powerful tools right there that are already at your fingertips.
Chris, I think you've answered this question, but you talked to convention, and it's a question that came up on our chat room here, is that you talked to convention, the statistic just keeps getting worse and worse. It can hardly get any worse. That 90%, I'm using your numbers here, I've heard these numbers a little bit, but I think at convention you said 90% of the consumers in the last Riz Media survey said that they would use the agent again, yet only 12% do. The 90% is a little misleading. I've heard a statistic saying 74% because some of them are going to retirement homes, some of them are moving out of your community, so you're not going to get a segment of those. But it doesn't matter if it's 74% or 90%, we're only capturing 12% of those. How do you close that gap? And I think some of the answers you maybe just gave were to utilize some of these tools of AdWorks and stuff like that. But
yeah, I think that's it. That's it, Vince, is, you know, no other consumer-facing industry has this same gap. You know, if you looked at retail department stores like The Gap or Old Navy or, you know, Macy's, or, you know, the airlines business, think of Delta, and man, they're getting crushed, obviously. But, you know, Delta and Southwest and American Airlines, United. You think about the hotels, Hyatt and Marriott, et cetera. You know, all of those companies, they recognize that they need to spend 2 or 3 times more money keeping their existing customers than spending money to generate new potential leads or prospective customers. As an industry, we're completely flipped upside down. We spend 20% of our revenue as an industry on advertising to get new prospective consumers to try and talk to us, recognizing full well that only 1 to 2% of those people actually convert business. So we're so lopsided, flipped upside down in terms of our perspective, our mindset, our focus, how we're business planning, how we're structuring our systems. Everything is backwards, oriented towards talking to new people, even though we know as an industry, we're only going to close 2 out of every 100 new people that we talk to. Why we keep chasing these rabbits, I have no idea, but that's exactly why the problem is what it is. And here's the other two things. 65 to 70% of all deals, and we survey buyers and sellers who have transacted real estate in the last 12 months every year, we ask them, how did you find your realtor? 65 to 70% of them by way of referral, and then 75% of all buyers and sellers say, I only ever talk to one agent. So those two data points, coupled with the fact that our customer loyalty, the desirability of our loyalty is 70, 80, 90%, whatever number you want to use, it's very high. And the actual customer loyalty is 12%. That gap, which I call the loyalty value void, and the two other metrics I just shared would be all that I need as a business owner to completely reorient myself as to how I'm going about building my business. Why we don't do it as an industry, I don't know. It is the $1 million human behavior question in our industry, Vince, and I aim to close it.
Yeah, we focus too much on the now, and if we took I think, in my opinion, if we took a more of a long-term perspective and continue to stay in touch, more referrals, more repeat, more everything, and we would close that gap. A couple questions came up with all this change in technology. Chris, we've seen, and I don't know if you have numbers on the national website, internally, our website numbers are up 59% year over year. And I've heard Zillow's numbers and other numbers are because more and more people are searching online. The question that was brought up here is, will Zillow or even Amazon capitalize on the focus of technology and take a share of our market away from us? Do you have a perspective on that?
Well, you know, here's the interesting thing is, despite, you know, the continued, you know, role, I'll just say role that technology plays, because to me it's not very critical. But despite the advancing role that it plays, the representation by buyers and sellers with professional real estate agents is at an all-time high. And I'll be willing to bet moving forward, it's going to get even higher, because people will recognize that there's a lot of moving parts in this industry. And I think they've recognized that. So if ever the trend should have been shifting or beginning to move towards less representation by realtors on the buying and selling side, wouldn't it have been in the last 10 to 12 years since the correction and we came out of the recession? Of course it would have been, but it's not. And we saw the early retreat of the iBuyers. They were the first ones off the boat, by the way. They were the first ones off the boat, recognizing that, oh, their models didn't scale. There wasn't the right elasticity in their business plans, okay? And we knew going into this pandemic that the average iBuyer transaction was losing $5,000 to $6,000. So again, the headlines may portray a narrative. Again, black or white, the headlines are going to say something. It's actually shades of gray. Look at the data, look at the information, really listen to your customers. But I can tell you right now, if someone's transacting something every day or every week or every month, that whatever you're buying or selling, you're going to develop a muscle memory that gives you the confidence to maybe go it alone. When you're selling something that's hundreds of thousands of dollars and there's tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake in terms of what you're either netting as the sale proceeds or putting down as a down payment, earnest money deposit, etc. When you're transacting with that much risk and liability and you're only doing it every 10 to 13 years, trust me, people want professional representation. It proves itself out in the numbers. That's why more buyers and sellers are using agents now than ever before. It's at an all-time high. And so I don't buy the narrative. We're shades of gray on this storyline, and I don't see it. If something else proves itself in the numbers, I'll change my opinion. I'll be more reflective on what we do as a positioning and pivot point. But right now, I don't even think that it's a consideration worth dealing with.
Chris, one of the things that has been very interesting to me is I've heard it internally with some of our agents, and then I've also heard it from some other agents across the country on some calls I've been on, is that one of the things that people are going after that they've not in the past is for sell-by owners. For sell-by owners are really struggling. I don't know if you've heard this on any of your calls, but for sell-by owners are struggling through this process because they don't have the tools and vehicles and opportunities we do to drive traffic to the properties as we have in the past. So we're seeing a lot of people get a lot of wins out of that for sell by owner category. So I would encourage any of our people that maybe not went after for sell by owners in the past to at least look at that arena. I don't know if you've had any of that conversation on any of your calls or not, but both in our market and a couple other markets I've talked to people. It's been interesting to me for them to talk about, I don't really normally do for sell by owners, but I went after them because it's been an easy target for me.
Yeah, I've heard that. Here's the other thing, is a lot of these small and mid-sized builders, they're not going to want to invest the time and effort and to create the infrastructure needed to really represent the sales and marketing process in our new world. The virtual tours, the floor plans, the Matterports, all the video elements of qualifying buyers and all of that. A lot of these folks are going to need professional representation now differently than they did going into the pandemic. I know many of you do such a great job of working with your builders, but I think that's another element of our value proposition. If I'm working with a builder, I'm going back to them and saying, hey, what can I do to maybe create more value in this area of the business, maybe an opportunity to renegotiate your commissions agreements with them. But I think, now, not all of them, I'm not saying all of them, but I think some of them are going to need our expertise and understanding, okay, how do we operate in this new world and virtual showings and closings, and how does all this work now? And I think that's an opportunity for us to go to that portion of the industry and beef up our value proposition too.
Chris, is that video that Gina picked out for us earlier, and I saw that statistic before, it said 50 years ago, if you look at the Fortune 500, 89% of those companies are gone. The truth is, you've only got to go look 20 years deep. I've seen other surveys saying if you look 20 years deep, the change at the top of companies changed so drastically. And so much like your thought of rolling out Sage, I agree with it. I would rather you roll it out a product and not have it be perfect than not roll out anything at all. I've said in our organization, we will continue to embrace change, because if we don't embrace change, we're going to get left behind. I'm hoping that learning experiences come out of this for all of us. As you've went through this, Chris, what has this taught you? What are some of the changes that you would see as an organization or personally, that you think is going to be embraced, or that you're going to try to engage as you move forward?
Well, the first thing is, how relatively straightforward it is to generate good content. I think we can, as an enterprise, I think about the great content that we've been able to create, even the panels, this type of interaction. I know this is recorded, so now you can send this out to the agents that didn't make this. This is archived, so people a week from now or 2 weeks want to pick this up. The content that we're generating as an organization across the board is enormous, and we need to leverage that to our advantage. See, that's the thing that the Amazons and the Zillows, they don't have the on the street level understanding of what's going on and the dynamics dealing with clients, and the ability to come together and network and share ideas and best practices, and then go out and make stuff happen. It's a whole different ball game from that standpoint now. And so, understanding that, we can take a leadership role in the industry and do some of these things and get our people together and really strengthen our network connectivity, I think is a big takeaway that I'm going to, continue to own and be very actively a part of. I think the other thing too is we're all leaders in our respective businesses, right? We're all our own CEOs. And so I just feel I've always operated my career with, two principles. Number one is, in the absence of communication, hallucination. And the point there is, you've got to over communicate, particularly in times of change. And so as the CEO of your business, how does that apply to you? How are you communicating with your active clients, your past clients, your trusted partners? What are you doing? The other principle is, be a visible leader. Lead from the front in times of crisis. You lead from the back in times of bounty. Okay, but you lead from the front in times of crisis. And so what does that mean? How visible are you as the CEO of your business? What are you doing, to bring your team, your family, your community, whatever it might be, along with you? And so those things have definitely been reinforced for me during this time, Vince.
Chris, I so appreciate your time today. I know you've got a lot on your plate, and I clearly know that you've been communicating more, right, in a different manner than you ever have before. And I know you're going to continue to do that as we move forward from talks we've had. So Any last parting words that you want to give to our team? But we appreciate you and your time. It's early in the morning there for you. I know you and Gino like to get up in California. You must like to get up early in the morning. I think you must have better air than we do or something like that here. But any parting thoughts for us, buddy? We just appreciate you taking time today, though.
Yeah, I would just say parting thoughts is, number one, I appreciate you, Vince. I so enjoy working with you and being a part of your team and our friendship. And to the whole team at Ambassador Real Estate, I mean, what an impressive group of people. I can tell you, I'm so proud to be associated with all of you. Your energy, your spirit, your willingness to share. I see so many of you at our various events. So many of you reach out to me on social media and ask questions. It's just an engaged, turned on, bunch of people. And I love being a part of the network and supporting all of you and working alongside of you. It's just really, I'm an inspiring group of people, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you this morning, Vince. I appreciate it, buddy.
Brother, I appreciate it. We're going to just do a couple notes here, but you can dive off or stay on, whatever you want to do. But thank you. We'll be talking soon, brother.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You want to grab Scott real quick while I'm going through a couple statistics?
Mm-hmm.
Listings were down substantially. April over April, we had 723 new listings last April, 574 this April. Again, I've been told time after time that we have numerous people saying they've got people getting ready to list things here yet this month, for sure in June. So I do tend to believe there's going to be a pickup of that. The numbers are kind of crazy. I mean, on Friday we had 70 some new listings, and then yesterday we had 20 some. I mean, that's a crazy gap of one day we're getting 77, and 2 days later, business days later, we're getting 21. So there doesn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason to this. The other thing that I will tell you that's a positive is we've kind of said in our market, the upper end has really, really been slow. We've clearly seen over the last 5 or 6 days, I've had a number of calls, a handful of calls with agents that are writing $1 million plus offers. So it seems to me like that market in and of itself may be loosening up as some of the bars, restaurants, and things are starting to open back up here a little bit. Maybe people are feeling a little bit better about us coming out of this and getting back engaged in the marketplace. So again, our numbers have been incredibly strong. If you would have asked me 7-8 weeks ago, would we sold 85-90% of the houses this April versus last April, I would say absolutely positively not. And quite honestly, the last 10 days, that number's really picked up to be about on par with what last year's numbers were. So that's incredible to me. I wanted Scott to talk a little bit as we started doing what I'll call soft openings for open houses of allowing minimum amount of people in there. Kind of some things I had Scott drop something to put in the World Herald and any advertising that we're doing that he's got to Maggie stating, here's kind of some requirements and to reduce some liability for us and make sure that the public can see we're being socially responsible. Scott, can you kind of dive in of what our stance is on doing open houses, what we'd like to have the agents get clients to sign and kind of walk through that process for me, please?
Well, we had heard a couple of weeks ago that certain agents were doing open houses and they were going to be out front while it was going on. And so that prompted some concerns from our standpoint of, does the seller know that? Is the seller okay with that? Because of course, I think the sellers are counting on the agents being in the house to make sure that, things are secure and not stolen. And so, if we're going to do that, then we better get a form in place that is very clear that we're telling our sellers, hey, we're going to be out front while people are touring, but we want to limit the amount of people who go through it. It's only going to be, basically a couple and maybe 2 minor children going through it. They're going to go through it alone, and that's it. We suggest you as sellers, put away your prescription drugs, put away your valuables, put away anything that you don't want to, that could be possibly taken by somebody. The agent can only do so much when they're out front. Clearly they're going to be able to note if someone's shoving a TV out front, but smaller things are more concerning. And so we just wanted to make sure that we have a form in place that says, hey, you want us to hold opens or you want us to do showings, that's great. But you have to understand there's concerns, right? There's concerns because we can't ensure that people going through the house aren't going to have exposure to COVID. We're going to have them sign a COVID form saying that they don't have it, but that's only as good as their word. And that's only as good as their knowledge. They could be asymptomatic, we wouldn't know. So we just want to get forms in place that, one, they're assuming the risk. They understand that there is risk in having people from the public come into the house. they're agreeing to that, and they're fine with that. And then we're encouraging them to, one, put away valuables, put away all the things that we want to make sure that they don't get taken. And then we want, the sellers to go through the house as quickly as they can afterwards and sanitize door handles, things that would be touch points that people would touch as they went through the house, just for their own protection. And kind of the same thing, which on buyers forums, buyers want you to take them out and show them houses. Then we want them to also assume that there is a risk of exposure to COVID by doing this, and that we as a brokerage can't stop that. We can't prevent that exposure. We can only do the best that we can, and we have some suggestions on buyers going through houses too. So those are kind of the forms that we have out right now.
And we sent those out last Friday, Gina, right? So look at my email last Friday if you haven't seen those. And do we have those online somewhere, Scott?
Yeah, they'll be in Dot Loop too.
Okay, guys, 2 more minutes. Quick couple of announcements. In 2 weeks, Tuesday, May 19th, Gino will be doing 25 minutes of some inspirational, motivational stuff. I talked to him last night, so we're excited to have Gino here in 2 weeks, May 19th, if you can mark that on your calendars. Also, we've had great success on getting closings done on a timely basis, having very competitive rates with Prosperity Mortgage. Quite honestly, we've had 4 or 5 mortgage companies over the years. These guys are by far the most aggressive, the most focused on helping us grow our business. They're not focused on refis, which is a big part of the market right now. So Tim Wilson, who's the CEO of Prosperity Mortgage, will be doing a live Zoom call this upcoming Monday at 2 p.m. So that will maximizing business while staying close to home. So has an email went out on that, or it will be going out? Today. An email will be going out on that. So please try to put that on your calendar. Again, May 11th at 2. And the last thing, any of you that are car buffs, starting the second Saturday of June, running through, I believe, September or October, we're going to be hosting. Last year, Bentley did it. 2 years ago, Pinnacle Bank did it. Those any of you that like nicer cars, Ferraris, Lambos, McLarens, Porsches, in our parking lot on the second Saturday of each month in the morning, we're going to be hosting that car show. So we're excited, and we'll continue to get more news out with you on that. So anything else, Gina, before I wrap up?
I have the free hugs video up, but we have to make sure that people know hugging people right now.
Yeah, let's do it later. We'll plan it later. Guys, it was great having Chris on. We're going to continue to communicate. I will tell you, we've learned a lot from Zoom. We've also learned and got a lot of feedback from you that getting out an email from me every Friday, getting out our updates from Gina on a weekly basis of here's what's coming up for the weekend, here's what's coming up for the week. We're going to continue to communicate as we move forward more frequently than we ever have before. This really has forced us into sharpening our skills. I wanted to force you guys into sharpening your skills on how you're doing listing presentations, how you're communicating with your clients, make sure that you're building more meaningful relationships than you ever have in the past. But guys, I think we've got a great opportunity, have an awesome second half of the year. Continue to please reach out to someone. If you reach out to someone 30 days ago, reach out to them again with that I care attitude. How are they doing? How are they making it through this? Real estate will come up. You're going to be there to be that valued source that they're going to trust through this process, guys. Have a great day. I know I'm seeing more and more of you in the office. Take care. Love you. Bye-bye.